It was 2003 and I decided to return to the birthplace of my mother. My grandfather's croft now belongs to my aunt, and two of my cousins have now built houses in the croft. It is in the eastern part of the island, at Gress, about 10 miles north of Stornoway. The White House on the shoreline is Gress Lodge, and the ruin to the left of it is all that is left of Gress Farm, the original proprietor, and almost the only house in the village a century ago. This side of the island is not so wild and rugged as the west coast, but is blessed with the same share of wonderful sandy beaches. After the First World War, the islanders were promised land for fighting for their country. 1 in 5 died during the war, more than any other area in Britain, and a boat bringing just under 300 back home at New Year in 1919 ran aground, and 200 of those aboard lost their lives as well. As time passed, the government had done nothing about the land offer, and some islanders from neighbouring villages took the law into their own hands and decided to make a stand for their rights. Eventually, after several confrontations, they were each given crofts in the farm. They were later known as the Gress Raiders. A monument now stands in the local Macher to celebrate their victory. My grandfather was one of those raiders. The island people were predominantly Celtic in origin, but from the 9th century until the Battle of Largs in 1263 we had the Viking era, and by then many of the islanders were of Norse origin. Many of the names traced their roots to Scandinavia, as do many of the place names. The soft enchanting lilt of the island dialect is as a result of the Celtic Viking fusion. Many of the villagers still use peat to supplement their heating. At Braga, on the west coast of the island, we find a croft with an impressive whalebone arch. It's formed by the jawbone of an 80-foot-long blue whale that was washed ashore in 1920, with a harpoon still attached. On the island's exposed Atlantic coast, we find the attractive blackhouse village of Garranan. In 1990, the Garranan Trust was formed and set about restoring the village so as to offer modern-day facilities in a setting of bygone times. Traditional methods have been used to restore the dry stone walls and the thatched roofs. The wonderful distinctive smell of a peat fire drifted through the warm summer air as we wandered blissfully through the village, bringing back the most wonderful childhood memories of the many happy summers I spent in this enchanting island. The village here has probably been inhabited for over 300 years. The original blackhouses were completely abandoned in 1974. Electricity only arrived here in the 50s, but it was only available for lighting. And it was the 60s before pipe water arrived, but it was only available from standpipes. There is now a youth hostel and a cafe and a visitor centre, and one of the houses has been restored to give a typical 50s interior, to give visitors an idea of the available facilities and to show what life was like at that time. I remember we had oil lamps for lighting in the croft, and we had the only well in our part of the village, and we had to cross a burn to get to it. A bath was in an aluminium tub using well water boiled in a peat fire. When we did eventually get pipe water, it was peat stained. Wonderful memories. And one of the things I always looked forward to when arriving in the island was the intoxicating smell of a peat fire. That's when I knew I was home, and I still love it to this day. There are also 4 self-catering cottages, which can even be booked on the internet, and it was one of those that Roberta and Kathy decided to visit. Oh dear. Sitting on a hill above the village of Carloway is another ancient jewel. From the age of the Picts we find Down Carloway, with its futuristic visitor centre sitting below it at the side of the road. The impressive well-preserved Iron Age broch is over 2,000 years old. This fortified tower is a stairway between double dry stone walls. The broch is over 10 metres high, and the side that has collapsed only enhances the tourist experience by seeming to give a cutaway view of the building's interior. The diameter at its base is almost 15 metres wide. A visit to Lewis is a wonderfully atmospheric experience with its many ancient relics scattered throughout the length and breadth of the island. On an exposed grassy headland, above one of Lewis's many deeply indented island-dotted sea lochs, sits an ancient circle of standing stones. Alongside them, we find an unobtrusive futuristic visitor centre. These 4,000-year-old atmospheric monoliths of Louisa and Nice add an air of mystery to this fascinating Hebridean scene. From the air, the stones seem to resemble the shape of a Celtic cross, but they were constructed a century and a half before the Celts arrived in Britain. There are many theories, but we may never know who built them or why they were built, and in almost every hilltop surrounding the stone circle, we find a series of smaller stone circles, and so the mystery deepens. Whatever the reason, this evocative circle of rugged ancient stone, sitting proudly on its hillside setting, has been a haunting and atmospheric sight for visitors throughout the ages. I first visited this site as a child, and it still captures my imagination. As you wind your way through these atmospheric monoliths of the most ancient rock in the world, it can get quite claustrophobic at times. There are many stone circles to be found in the British Isles, but there are none with the impact of Callanish, standing proudly on its rugged headland above Loch Rogue. This island is rich in archaeological treasures. The Callanish stones are now in the care of Historic Scotland. A little further on we come to the little island of Great Bernera. It is now joined to mainland Lewis by a bridge. At the north end of the island is a most beautiful little bay. As we arrived at Bosta, the bay was hit by a squall. A little fishing boat was being tossed about like a cork in the open sea. A series of rugged little islands protect the bay from the full force of the wild Atlantic breakers. But even more spectacular, and sitting just back from the wonderful sandy beach on a glorious wildflower macher surrounded by grassy hillocks, is the reconstruction of an Iron Age roundhouse, exposed when the bay was hit by the crashing surf and particularly severe gale force winds in the winter of 1996. A little highland burn ripples past it, then across the wonderful apron of pure white sand on its way to the clear turquoise sea. An idyllic scene. Our trip to Bosta was marred by very showery weather. Twice we got caught in heavy showers, but we persevered and the results were worth it. During one heavy shower, Roberta shot back to the car, while I dived into the Iron Age house. I got the shock of my life when I bumped into a character sitting by a peat fire. I didn't realise there would be anyone in there to show people around. The visit to Great Bernera was more than worthwhile, despite the inclement weather. Well, our trip to the island of Lewis was coming to an end. The weather while we were here was very changeable, but that's part of the deal. The atmosphere of its ancient and magical past hangs over the island like a misty shroud. and as the boat drifts from the quay, I feel the same pull as I have felt for the many years that I've been coming here. The call of the Isles is as strong as ever in me.